Okay. Good afternoon. I am Jen Baudet with the Creative Coast Executive Director, and this is our lunchtime topic for the day on May the 14th, Thursday. Thank you for joining us, whether you're on our live stream right now or whether you join us by watching us later when it's more appropriate for you. We are a nonprofit organization in Savannah, Georgia that is focused on the intersection of creative and technology and entrepreneurship, and we're helping companies and entrepreneurs and techies connect, grow businesses, and be successful in our region. And today's topic is really timely. It's on customer discovery. So we have with us Creative Coast board member, longtime supporter of the Creative Coast, even before she was a board member, as well as Chief Marketing Officer for Oxos Medical, a Savannah launched medical device company, and founder of Strategy RX, a consultancy around media and marketing and getting the word out. And so she's going to talk about the customer discovery process, what, why, and how. And one lucky winner is going to get a copy of Rob Fitzpatrick's book, The Mom Test. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Murem. Murem, hi.
Hello. Before I jump into the PowerPoint, I just want to add a couple of points. It's been great to be part of the Creative Coast board, and Jen, in her dual role with CETA and Creative Coast, I don't know how she does it, but she's brought the Creative Coast to where it really should be, and it continues to grow and thrive. I was introduced to the Creative Coast literally on day one when my husband Tom Sharpe and I decided that we were getting serious about moving to Savannah. Met with Howard Morrison, the late and great Howard Morrison, who was an early founder, supporter of Creative Coast. There was that. And then our son, Eric Sharpe, was then a junior at SCAD. So when people say, why did you move here? My husband says, so you could help Eric get through college, which was not true at all. He helped his friends get through college. And then he stayed here for 10 years, founded Digital Doc, which was a computer software, hardware support repair company. He sold it to a larger entity out of Atlanta, moved up to Atlanta because his then love, now wife and mother of 2-year-old Annika, was up in Atlanta, where she has a permanent base working in the film industry. She met Eric here during the filming of an Adam Sandler film several years ago. So there you go. Well, technically they met through Tinder, but she was here. Okay. So we have a Tinder granddaughter. I'm just thrilled to be able to talk about customer discovery. It is fun, it is productive, and I'm going to go into the what is it, why would we do it, and here we go. I'm going to share screen, and how to do it. So here we go. Open PowerPoint. Oh, okay. I guess I have it open. Yes, here we go. Let me just get into slideshow. Customer discovery.
All right, we can't see it.
You can't see it. Oh dear. All right. Well, let me end of slideshow. Click to exit.
When you share your screen, there's going to pop up like 5 or 6 different things. So click on the PowerPoint.
Okay. All right. That's what I did. I thought. I've done this many times before for other presentations.
Okay.
All right. Anybody see anything yet?
I do not.
All right, hold on. Share screen, it says multiple participants can share simultaneously.
No, we want, right now it's selected only one participant can share, so only one
person. Oh wait, I know what I did. Okay, I didn't click on the actual share thing.
Okay, yeah. Okay. See your desktop. Wow, what a desktop.
Oh, it's pretty clean, you know. As just, oh, I'm proud
Very
of it.
Organized. I'm impressed.
It's pretty clean. I didn't even clean it up special. All right, here we go now. All right, is all good now?
All's great, thank you.
Okay, great. Customer discovery, what, why, and how, and it went all the way to the end. So look at this. All right, here we go. Here's the first slide. What is customer discovery? What the heck is it? Because it's kind of an odd marketing lingo, business planning lingo. If you haven't been to one of our boot camps, maybe you don't know what it is. It's pretty basic. It's learning from potential customers. It's a very powerful, informative, and cheap step to do because you usually do it yourself as the entrepreneur. I'm going to talk about startups, but I also want to express that this is also useful if you have an existing business and you are introducing a new product, or you have a product and you're thinking about some cool new features. Back to my third bullet point, the first step in developing your business model canvas. Again, that is boot camp speak. And maybe that would be a good presentation for somebody else to make all about that. I'm doing a little strategy interlude because at Strategy RX, I like to start with my clients and ask them, what is your strategy? And there is an excellent article in the Harvard Business Review called Strategy for Startups. Since I acquired it while subscribing, I can share it with you. And what it says is, if you are a startup, there are only 4 types of strategies. Again, I'm going to, this is to entice you to have me send it to you so you can read the detail, but just focus on the 4 big boxes. There are only 4 strategies the authors propose that a startup should choose from: intellectual property, architectural, value chain, or disruption. Intellectual property is, I'm an idea factory. A lot of entrepreneurs are idea factories and they start in this quadrant. I'm going to jump to this conclusion. Many of them should stay in that quadrant. It can be lucrative. The example they talk about is Dolby Sound. Dolby has never created its own product. It has, it's in movies, it's on your laptop, it's used in the music world everywhere, theaters, concert halls, and so forth. But they just license it, and they're a big lucrative company. Architectural that's where many of the Googles and the unicorns end up. They build a whole new world. Value chain is pretty cool. It's like food delivery services where they have become very adept at partnering with other people. And last but not least is disruption. Most entrepreneurs want to go quickly from intellectual property to disruption. And disruption is, I have such a great idea that I'm going to disrupt this big market and knock out all the big names. I'm going to go up against, maybe I'm going to go up against Google, or I'm going to go up against Stryker if you're a med tech company, or whatever the case may be, because I have such a fabulous idea. Here's the problem. You really have to know how to execute. And I would also add, you really need to know that you got a product that the customers are going to adopt, and adopt rather quickly. So that's my interlude, and I would suggest that this talk is going to be especially interesting for people who want to disrupt, who actually want to execute their idea. But it's also pretty useful for people who want to develop intellectual property, who want to project where their product might fit, even if they aren't the ones to introduce it. Why do customer discovery? Why do it? Because you need to avoid a bunch of unproductive things. Spending your time without getting to know the truth from customers. Spending money without getting to know the truth from your customers. Getting what are called false positives. Oh, what a great idea, Murem. Or false negatives. Jen, I don't think it's ever going to work. Nah. But there's more. Avoid marketing myopia, product in search of market. I'm not a huge Harvard Business Review fan, but this was from back in the 90s where Theodore Levitt, a professor, I'm sure at Harvard, well, no, he was an MIT professor, I think, invented this phrase, marketing myopia, and he directed it especially to the engineers and what today we would add in the developers, who say, I call it the lady you'll like it syndrome. They get very excited about developing a product because they think, you know, they would like it, or they just have a good idea. And that's another article you might want to dive out and get for yourself, but it's a classic. It's taught in every MBA program. What you want to grasp is your product market fit. That's where customer discovery comes into play. And here's my encouragement interlude. If you are a startup or thinking about being a startup, people love startups. When we entrepreneurs screw up, a third of my career I've been an entrepreneur or working with entrepreneurs, yeah, we screw up. 2/3 of the time when I was in corporate America, if I screwed up, I still got my paycheck. If I screwed up as an entrepreneur, I lost time and money, and sometimes friends. And people want the startup to succeed. It's exciting. It's good news. I mean, even in the midst of this COVID disaster pandemic that we're in, there are amazing inventions that are coming out of this. And I'm not just talking about the vaccines, but all kinds of ways for people to communicate with each other. The whole telemedicine has been around for a long time, but instantly the Medicare CMS adopted it and said, okay, now you can, okay, fine. If you have a telemedicine consult with your doctor, we'll pay for it, just like if you were sitting in the office. So all kinds of things are popping up. As Jen mentioned, I'm Chief Marketing Officer for what was originally called Micro-C Imaging, and Micro-C is our alpha product, our handheld X-ray device. We're now called Oxos Medical because we're expanding across imaging throughout the medical community. We were able to offer some good news, hashtag good news, to the Creative Coast about an application that we were invited to make with the National Science Foundation to take our technology and expand it beyond handheld and to create a still portable but chest X-ray version of our product. And we should hear almost momentarily whether or not we get what would be a pretty sizable grant to assign some of our existing engineers. We might even do some hiring for new engineers to actually develop that product. I even have some more hashtag good news heading over to Jan and Caitlin, which is that we were just selected to go into the semifinal round for a U.S. Army initiative around startups and new ventures and innovation. So there's money out there and things are happening. Okay, now here's a marketing 101 interlude. In customer discovery, if we look at the 4 P's of marketing, anybody who's taken a marketing course knows this: product, price, promotion, place. Product is obvious, price is. Promotion means how do you literally promote, engage your customers in learning about your product. And then place is always kind of the funny one. They needed a 4th P. So that's how do you distribute it? Do you sell it directly? Do you sell it through distributors? Do you sell it online, or any combination thereof? Customer discovery can help you learn a lot about what to do about your product. I put a strike through price because you certainly not in your early rounds of customer discovery. I recommend you stay away from asking about pricing. You certainly can ask about promotion, but it has to be in a very smart way, because again, you're not supposed to tell them, hey, here's my product, you know, what if I sold it on Amazon? What you want to find out is how did they learn about what they may currently be using to solve a problem, and then the place, the distribution, and where did you actually, get this product or service? That's okay to ask. All right, how do we do this? Yes, the mom test. It's a great little book, and I would be happy to. I'm going to either ship you a hard copy. It's a small book, or you can get a Kindle version, whatever you choose. Whoever wins this, I will ship that off to you. I love that it's called the mom test because, well, I'm a mom. I'm even a grandma. I think it's not be hard for you to understand, but I'm actually a grandma. And I'm going to change my glasses because, oh yeah, this is maybe a little better because I wear, these things, readers, but I have the type that deflect the light from the screen. So maybe they're distracting for you guys. Okay, the mom test. In the mom test, this is the test that Rob publishes a few times throughout the book. When you're doing customer discovery, this is the how. You talk about their life instead of your idea, them being the prospective customers. And you ask about specifics in the past instead of asking them what they would do to solve their problem. Again, that can happen later on. And the last one is probably one of the most important. Talk less and listen more. So how do you do this customer discovery? I'm going to go through these elements of it. Who do you engage? What kind of tone do you adopt? And how should you plan your time around it? And I will go into some of the many interview questions you should not use. And then I'm going to go into some of the interview questions you should use. Again, whether you win the book for me or you just get it for yourself, or I can also, I would be happy to send you links to the references I used for some of this presentation. There's much more to say about the interview no's and yeses. Who? Okay, not your mom. Because your mom is gonna probe you and say, why are you asking me about how I get my dishes done? What's behind it? What's behind it? And then because you're a compliant child, you go, well, because I've got this new dishwasher idea. And then she probes you, pushes you into saying what it is. And then of course she likes it because she loves you and she wants you to have enough money to at least buy your own groceries. Okay. More with the who. I recommend starting with 8 people, then adding 8 more, then 8 more. Why 8? Early in my career, in my first corporate job was with Pitney Bowes, and I was there for 11 years. This was a while back. It actually, I think, rightly appeared in that famous book, Good to Great. It was a very well-managed company. They were in their heyday. They were kind of a monopoly in a bunch of their product lines. Not in the one that I ultimately ran the division for all their new products, their software and stuff like that. But I learned a lot from Len Lerner, who was a PhD in industrial psychology. He was director of market research at Pitney Bowes. And whenever we were thinking about developing a product, we would go to, it was like our own inside market research guru firm. We would go to them and say, hey, we have a product concept, or we have a product or whatever, we want to add features, help us figure this out. So they ran all the market research for us, surveys, focus groups, hit the road with a product, you name it. And Len always recommended that especially once you got a prototype, and we were in the business equipment business, he said, you literally take that prototype, and because everybody back then did mailing a lot, and everybody was pretty much using some version of a Pitney Bowes product, you would basically go into, if you're in Manhattan, you go into the Empire State Building and you start, go on a floor and you knock on 8 doors and you bring your prototype in and you say, hey, what do you think about this? And he said, and this did bear out, in fact, that usually 2 of the 8 would say, yeah, I could use this, and 6 would say I can't, or vice versa. 6 I can, 2 I can't. Once in a while you get the 4 and the 4. Now, let me caution, I'm not saying you're bringing your product to 8 people, but 8 people just turns out to be a pretty good device for getting some useful early feedback, again, leaning pro or con. Sometimes you're going to end up in the middle and find out that, oh, half the people really don't have a problem with this thing, this, and 4 people don't. But usually you're going to find a trend. And it's okay to start with people you know. That's fine. But just like not your mom. And yes, it should be people who could likely be customers. And I'm surprised I didn't put an interlude in here where I'm, those of you who know me, I'm very marketing, and I'm a marketer, but I'm also a salesperson. I think it's so important to, as immediately as possible, start capturing your contacts in some kind of a CRM, a customer relationship management software. There's Copper that's cheap. There's HubSpot. There are a bunch of them out there. To me, it's just as easy to do that as to set up a Google spreadsheet, and probably better. Because again, I like to operate on the assumption that, some of these people could become your customers. And if you decide to just ditch the whole idea, so what? You can probably use a CRM for something else, or your next bright idea. What kind of tone? As I mentioned, keep it casual. It's an interview, but it's not an interrogation. These days, since most of the time you can't do it in person, or you can do it now in a coffee shop, 6 or 8 feet apart, kind of, yelling at each other a little bit. But if you can't, I prefer Zooming rather than doing it over the phone. And yeah, you can use a warm-up chat. Sure. And you'll see that later coming up in the timing. And then recording, this isn't exactly tone, but I had to throw it in somewhere. I would definitely encourage you to record it. If, first of all, you have to get permission. With video, across all 50 states, you have to get permission. Audio, Georgia is one of those states of the 32 states or something where you only have to get the permission of one person, which could be the host. But I think it's just a good idea to ask for permission anyhow. Even if you don't have the time or the budget to get a transcription, and transcriptions are darn good and darn inexpensive these days. It's really valuable content. And also, I have found that even in these early interviews, especially when a customer is talking about their problems, it can be the beginning of what turns into a really good testimonial down the road. Okay, time. I would say the body of it should only be about 30 minutes. I mean, don't overdo it. You can always go back too if you think the person would have more to add or they get interrupted. I use the 90-10 rule. 90% of the time them talking, 10% of the time you talking. Now, where'd I get that from? Here's a little interlude. Back when I was getting my MBA and I went to Yale Management School, I decided to take a course in the second semester of my second year, which is when you're kind of taking electives and having some fun. I even had to contact one of my classmates to say, hey, Tim, what was that seminar we took together with that really famous professor, and what was even the name of it? It was called Information for Decision Making. I mean, pretty obtuse. And it was by a very famous professor, and I'll be happy to post some of these resources to you. And I don't know, I guess I thought it was going to be very kind of theoretical, because a lot of Yale stuff is kind of theoretical, but oh no. He taught us, he said, okay, here's your project for the semester, and you're going to be graded on it. And this is the only thing you're going to do. Go out and find a report that some entity within a company or organization has created, and go find the producer and the user, and find out if the producer came up with what the user could really use. So I had actually done my summer MBA job in between the 2 years at Pitney Bowes, coincidentally. And so I thought, hey, what'd be interesting would be to get a sales forecast and find out what the sales organization wanted to know on a sales forecast and who produced it. So that was really a lot of fun. The next thing the professor told us was, when you go out, now this is before internet, before cell phones, I mean, back in the dark ages, but here's what applies to us today. First of all, 90-10 rule. You want them talking and you just speaking to ask questions or to ask for clarification. And then also, as soon as you finish the interview, you go into a room, a telephone booth, remember them? Any place, and you polish, you're taking notes, but you polish them very quickly because you're losing what you said or what they said. And then in terms of time overall, plan on, again, the 30 minutes to polish your notes, and it's going to be probably because you've been typing them. Okay, let's go into some interview question don'ts. Never tell them about your new product idea. It's so hard to do. It's so hard to do. This is hugely relevant to me because right now I am conducting customer discovery interviews for a new venture that I'm contemplating launching. And I can't even tell you what it is because I want some of you, including Jen, to be my interviewees for my customer discovery interviews. So I can't tell you what the new product is. So therefore I can't hint and say, well, do you think this would be a good idea? Would you buy this product? Or heaven forbid, how would you pay for it? There are a myriad of bad questions out there. These are just a few. Okay, interview do's. And this again comes from that early experience I had as an MBA student. You lead off with, how do you do whatever it is? I mean, how do you wash your dishes? How do you communicate with your customers? How do you perform your hand surgeries? How do you do this? How do you do that? And they start talking, and then you say, and then what? Keep them talking. And then what? And then what? And the problems that they have will start to emerge. You can use the word if you need to probe them. Is that a problem? If they seem a bit neutral. But you really just want, again, to find out what their, remember I said back a ways, what is their life around this problem, around this arena that you're trying to probe into. Generally speaking, questions that dig and dig more are very important. You can use, there are even some special questions you can use if the purpose of your customer discovery is that you are thinking about adding features. If there's some unique questions you can ask about features. That is a fairly quick run through customer discovery, the what, the why, the how. And I am now available for questions. So I'm not sure if I planted any questions. I think we have we have some new people on as well.
Yep, we have 9 people. So Murem, it's Jen. I'll start, obviously. So I think it's interesting because I have the theory of like, you can't tell them your product idea, but it is so hard, right? Even when you're scheduling the appointment, like people want to know why they're meeting with you. And so I think, sometimes I will talk about kind of the theme of the idea. Like for Oxus, it might be, I want to learn more about how you, perform hand surgery. Like,
Right.
want to learn more about that process. Would you be willing to spend 30 minutes with me and give me a rundown, so that you're not just like, hey, I'm testing out a new idea. Can we talk? It's more about, hey, I just want to talk more about how you do X. And big, broad strokes, when I'm really curious about this little tiny nugget in that overall process. But you have to frame it somehow, because people otherwise won't meet with you.
Yes, that is an issue, and I'm experiencing that right now. The people who know me, my friends, my former MBA or college classmates who I still keep up with, it's kind of like, hey, Murem, you asked me for 30 minutes. I don't care what it's about. Of course, I'll give it to you. But now I'm going beyond that circle, because they're referring me to other people. So I'm a friend of a friend, and there's one guy who is an absolute genius I'm trying to get through to. He has avoided this 30 minutes multiple times. I mean, he said, I need to talk with you for 5 minutes before I can give you 30 minutes. And I'm just going to tell him the same thing pretty much, that I'm, broad strokes. I'm looking to explore how you generate content, by, particularly when you're interacting with other people. That's my vagary around what I'm talking about. But it's hard. So that's why the first 8 I said, the beginning was, you got to start with people you know. And I also made a deal with one of my buddies. I said, once I am able to reveal the product, or it's actually a service, to you, I will offer you to use it for free.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's hard.
The other thing I found is you can lead the witness, so to speak, just in the order that you're asking questions, or by how you're phrasing questions. Like if you ever say, is this, would you, should, then you're starting to lead the witness, right? So the more you can be like, how do you do this? What do you do? Why do you do it that way?
Yes.
Like, there's certain keywords that I catch myself sometimes when I am doing it in a reel, be like, oops, I just said, would you? And that's probably a no-no. That probably means, because would you, the answer is typically yes or no, and then an explanation. If I'm getting a yes or no answer, I'm doing a bad job of asking questions.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why the professor's advice back when, which I try to use religiously, is to get them to talk about the process of what they're doing in a particular scenario. As you said, your product or service is really trying to zoom in on maybe one aspect of it that happens during the process. That's why, how do you do this? And then this repeat of, and then what, and then what, and then what is a good thing to do. I think people like you and I, and I'm sure others on the call, we're probably pretty good conversationalists, and we're pretty creative conversationalists, but that gets us into trouble.
I think, and for a tangible example, I mean, Oxus is a great example, right? You would have gone in and interviewed somebody on the process of doing hand surgery, and you really cared about, how often did they have to lug over that huge x-ray machine to take a picture of the hand to make sure that the pins were placed in there right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a little tiny piece that you were looking to solve but you were asking about the whole process.
Yes. And actually, as a compliment to to Greg Kulovich, Dr. Kulovich, who is orthopedic surgeon in hand and microsurgeon, who is the inventor of it. He did, as you may, I'm not sure if you were involved, but he was in early 2016, he was in the boot camp.
Boot camp, yeah.
And he, as you can imagine, couldn't attend many of the daytime sessions. That's why you have these wonderful evening sessions now. But he conducted in March of every year, there's a huge convention called, or I call it convention, but a meeting of the orthopedic surgery industry. So 10,000 orthopedic surgeons show up, and there are classes and sessions in a huge exhibition hall. This was at concept stage. He interviewed 100 of his fellow sister surgeons, primarily during that time. He just went as an attendee, and I'm sure he did some interviews over the phone. The big advantage for him, and the big advantage for any entrepreneur, is that he was looking to solve his own problem.
Yeah.
Which was having a way to do X-ray and fluoroscopy, which is live X-ray, without hauling a 400-pound mini C, much less maneuvering an 800-pound traditional C-arm. So that was a big advantage. And also, as a surgeon, he is naturally curious about how a surgeon does a particular surgery. You know, how do you do your carpal tunnel? How do you do your wrist repair? How do you do, tennis elbow? I love it. I go to, as the marketer, I'm of course always around these guys, and I just stand there, and they just could talk for hours about, well, I do this with this instrument, and then I do that with that. So he was in a catbird seat, and I think that's one of the reasons why, as we near FDA clearance, that we, and I'm at the helm of this, our CRM is filled with leads and prospects. And I know there are two different things, because he just did such a good job from the outset, focusing in fact, very narrowly. Every day I entertain inquiries from all over the world about, and that's another thing about this customer discovery. You got to be broad enough, but narrow enough, in that maybe you think the market for your product is, and I'll stay within medicine, every single type of orthopedic discipline, ultimately, because you've developed a really smart patent that can, like I said, put together a chest X-ray, mobile chest X-ray, or handheld, or whatever. But you gotta focus on the initial market segment you think is going to be most powerful. And that's what Greg did when he did the, we continue, by the way, to do customer discovery interviews. For example, we believe that there is a significant market for the Micro C in developing countries, mission work, that sort of thing. So I have been conducting interviews with orthopedic surgeons who go on missions, and talking through not how do you do your surgery, but the process of how do you handle orthopedic X-rays today in your missions, which includes things like, oh yeah, we pack a mini C and we put it in the hold of the airplane, and then when it lands in Nicaragua, it's been ruined, it's all fallen apart, all kinds of things like that. So bells are going off about, okay, so for sure our device has to be something you can carry on board and carry on. It can't be in the hold of the plane because it'll fall apart. So customer discovery is for startups, but it's for any new
Any new product or service, any company should be doing some customer discovery. And I think 100 was the number that ATDC taught, right? That was, ATDC was like 100. That's, in order to graduate from customer discovery to move to the next class, you had to do 100 interviews. And then the other thing though is the the conference. So many people don't figure that out. I mean, you can literally do 100 interviews if you go to the right conference in one day, right? Because it's a target-rich environment. If you know that you are going after some sort of product or service that serves X, where do they congregate once a year? Right? Or where do they congregate in this day online? Is there an association that you could join and now you can chat with them in the forum? Is there a LinkedIn group where there's a lot of chatter going on, right? And you could chat with them in the LinkedIn group, the private link, so I think that's one of the keys to if you know who you wish to serve, this becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if that's, well, it's going to be very interesting to see what Creative Coast does with the boot camp and all these elements of the boot camp going forward. Hey, maybe there's a market for, well, there is a market for conducting customer discovery interviews. There is a market, online. There is a market for conducting focus groups online and so on.
Yeah, I think the curriculum that we teach in the boot camp is the ATDC curriculum, and that'll probably be available online from ATDC moving forward. So I think Creative Coast and the local ATDC folks, as we look at the boot camp moving forward, can focus more on the coaching aspect, that aspect. And we ran the last 2 classes on Zoom, so I think we can do that on Zoom if we have to. But I do think, I've been doing a lot of coaching calls on Zoom with entrepreneurs or groups of entrepreneurs that are getting started and want advice. So I think we'll be okay. Does anyone else have any questions?
I see a couple of people I know who are involved in politics in town, as of course I am. Or actually 3 people I know so far that I'm looking at who I recognize. And I've been sort of curious about using customer discovery, we'll call it voter discovery or citizen discovery, to identify issues that we may have at a local or city, county, state, national level, to do some research before bills or orders or that sort of thing are pushed out there. So I don't know if anybody would like to comment on that.
Barbara, I see you opened up your mic. Hi.
I'm so new at this Zoom business, I must say, but I congratulate you. This is really superb. Makes me almost want to start up. I mean, you're so crystal clear and such good common sense, really. I mean, this is clearly the wave of the future, being able to Zoom this sort of mentoring online, isn't it?
Yeah.
Better so than the classroom.
Yeah, it sure is. Barbara, I know, is in Florida at the moment. She was kind of, in a way, caught there, but probably happy to stay there for right now. And she has been vice president of the Downtown Business Association. She's a retired person, but not really very retired. She was an executive with the World Bank.
I don't think you should call me a vice president of the Downtown Business Association.
Well,
anyway, I'm involved. I'm involved very much so. Yes.
Well, you were. I know you were. Yeah.
Oh,
and
no,
then,
no.
yeah.
Anyway,
and then
whatever.
also, yeah, you were also an executive with the World Bank with an emphasis on Africa. Yeah. And her late husband also. So you've seen a lot of businesses all over the world trying to make that product market fit.
So I want to tell you a couple of things relevant to what you all are doing, and that is, my sister works for the Casey Foundation, and she's since she left the Bush administration with Health and Human Services, she's worked remotely. And a couple of days ago, Casey had a conference with 1,000 participants Zooming. I talked to her about it. She said, first of all, the moderator was excellent. The organization was exceedingly well done. And in retrospect, they feel that they got more out of that Zoom conference with 1,000 people rather than meeting in Seattle for a couple of days. Better content, better breakout results. I mean, I thought that was fascinating, and that's certainly relevant to your work.
Yeah, I struggle a little bit with that. Like we have the Grit Conference, which we were planning for early November, and I don't know what to do about it just yet, right? But then I also have been getting invites to conferences, and they still want me to pay $500 to go to a conference that's going to be all online. And I'm like, part of the reason I go to the conference is to meet people, and how's that going to work? Like, how do you meet new people at a conference when you're online? I guess maybe I need to sign up for one of them and go to it to see what it's like. But they haven't dropped the price. They haven't dropped the price. So I'm like,
that's interesting about the price, because I wondered about that. Because you don't have any hotel. I mean, if you paid $500 to go to a conference, does that include a hotel? What does it include?
That's just for the conference. That's just for the ticket.
Just for the participation.
Normally, I have to budget $3,000 to go to a lot of these conferences because I'm flying to Toronto or to San Francisco, and I'm staying in an expensive hotel for 3 nights, and food and drink is not cheap. So, I mean, I've missed so far this spring, and based on cancellations that I've already been notified of, the conferences that I was planning to go to, because I plan all my conferences for 2020 in the fall of 2019 so I can get it approved by CETA. I've saved $16,000 in travel expenses and conferences through July right now.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much has that impacted your work, your workload?
So the reason I go to conferences is to market Savannah. It's my only marketing outreach strategy at this point in time. Now I have to shift that. As some of you may know, we had a CETA board meeting on Tuesday, and I got approved a change to our incentive package for creative technology workers. Prior to the change, if you moved a company here, you moved your company headquarters here and you moved employees with you, we would reimburse you up to $2,500 of relocation fees for those employees. I got the requirement of the company to move here to be removed. So if you're a tech worker or a graphic designer, creative person in the tech space, and you work for a company that now allows you to work anywhere you want to, you can come here and I will reimburse up to $2,000 of your relocation costs. So I'll pay for your U-Haul basically to move here. So if you're a 28-year-old coder who's been living in a 600 square foot apartment in San Francisco for the last 2 months and is not allowed to leave that apartment, come here. Come here, come to Savannah, move here, get a driver's license. I'll pay your moving fees and join our tech community here. So I'm hoping to grow the tech community by getting tools to move here. And I'm working on the marketing plan for that now. So now how do I go out? And since I'm not going to these conferences and meeting companies and or people that run these companies or individuals that work in these companies that I could recruit, I'm probably going to be running ads on Facebook and places, Instagram, and maybe on job search sites and things like that say, come here.
Well, here's the thing.
I think that's fascinating. Yeah, I bet you get a great response.
Yeah, Barbara and all, I think it was just before the session started, Jen and I were buzzing online here, and we're talking about how the big articles are out there about how the big cities like New York are not, the big employers there are not going to keep their big commercial spaces.
No.
So I think we need an outpost for Goldman Sachs workers here in Savannah who are very well paid. Seriously, why not? Why not?
Good idea.
And I can't wait to tell my husband Tom, who in his 6th or 7th career is a broker, a real estate broker.
Exactly.
Hey, I think the market for Savannah real estate could go up instead of down.
I have another idea. Yeah. I am sure the big Marriott, I'm sure these big hotels have unbelievable open space available. Reservations must be way down. Why don't you see if you can team up these entrepreneurs or these kids who might be interested in coming to Savannah and stay in this empty hotel space?
Yeah, for a while, sure.
Yeah, sure.
So that's a good example of if I'm going to try to bring it back a little bit to customer discovery. Why there are all these new opportunities, and it's a good idea to go out and talk with the folks. Maybe we can do that from the Creative Coast to go out and talk with these soon to work anywhere the heck you want people from.
I actually have. I did.
You did already?
Good for you.
Got to take your own advice, right? So I have a couple of friends that have sons and daughters that are in their 20s and are living in San Francisco or New York, and they've been stuck in apartments. And so literally I reached out to my friends and said, hey, can you give me your daughter or your son's phone number or email address? I am working on something and I want to bounce it off them. Could I, trouble you? And I called like 6 people and all of them were interested. Doesn't mean that they moved. They're all like, if there was a city in the South that I would think about moving to, Savannah would be top of mind.
Great.
So I think there's an opportunity there. Anybody else have any questions about customer discovery? Because
I'm gonna put Barbara jumped in, which is great. Tamika and Carrie, who are involved with politics, locally, county, statewide, and nationally even. What I talked about with customer discovery, which is finding out whether or not a product or service, your product or service, might solve somebody's problem. I mean, let's think about it. Government is all about delivering services. And folks who are running for office, candidates, are supposed to identify the biggest needs in their community, among their voters, and come up with a platform. And then eventually they get elected or not, or if they get elected, then they have to turn that into a bill, which turns into an appropriation, which turns into a service delivered over in the executive branch. So Tamika or Carrie, if you're still with us, either one of you want to jump in and talk about how you find out for your candidates, because you're campaign managers, both of you are in different ways. How do you work with your folks?
I think it's a tricky business because, you have to depend on people being completely upfront with you. And when you're doing the discovery, what I find is really interesting, first, I will want to meet with the client. And then I've come up with questions which kind of get into one's background. And you want to know what has happened in someone's life to where something may come up that may be objectionable or be to the detriment of the campaign or the candidate's family. Because maybe it's something that they solved, they haven't came out, no one knows about, but it's like creating a narrative that works. But sometimes people do not disclose that information, and it makes it really hard for the candidate's consultant, whether you're a campaign manager or anybody at any level, because then you have to really engage in also thinking, is this person ready? Because sometimes people think that they're ready to run for office and they're not, or they're a first-time candidate and they have like unreasonable expectations. It's a very high-paced, fast-paced, stressful environment if the person does not have credentials to support themselves to run. Meaning, you don't have to have a certain level of credentials, but you need to have some level of life experience. And you need to have some level, I think, of some sort of education, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's academic, or whether it's in your work. But you need to be able to be ready. And the only way you do that is through something what you guys are talking about today, which is the discovery. So you have to be you kind of also have to read behind what they're saying, and also pay attention to what else is going on, like their mannerisms, how they can deal with stress. And you might want to come up with certain questions where you would learn about the person. Anyway, it's a lot. It is a learning curve, but I'm sure you get that with any business.
No, I like the way you are talking about the candidate as a product, as it were, and how as a consultant, even before you take one on, because you know your consultancy is only as good as the success of your candidates, right? That you actually want to explore whether or not Mr. or Ms. prospective candidate would be a good product. So I would think that with that, and again, talk about not being able to name your product or say what it is, how you probably, and I know you, Carrie, very well, that you're out there all the time finding out from voters what are their problems, how do they want them solved, because, excuse me, that in a way is helping define what candidate/product will work in a given district. I mean, I'm kind of projecting here a little bit, but I like
a trend too that I'm seeing that I think is, I'm just thinking about it today. I've been sitting through, you know, this lesson, this lecture, whatever we want to call it, this discussion. But there is a new trend of a lot of people running for office and wanting to activate and have no political experience, have never been involved, which can be really good and really bad because there is a fundraising element. People also have to be able to raise money to pay staff. You may get into a business arrangement with someone and they just either don't want to raise money or can't because they're intimidated. And there's that big word, fear. I think fear tells us a lot of things that we can't do. And then there's other times where just things come up, because the other thing is not just the candidate, but it's also like the candidate's family, their coworkers. Like, you have a lot to consider. I'm probably going too far, but I'm just like throwing some things out there, because what I'm saying is that there's a lot of people with good intentions that want to run, but it may not work out because there's new structures too. So there's also the structure with technology that there's not this campaign manager scenario that worked in the past. You're seeing a lot more teams, a lot more vendors. So there's a lot to consider, and you get that in the discovery and hearing and being able to adapt and be organic of what the person is like. And when you get the essence of the person as the brand, and also evaluate their management structure, that will help you design a program around how they kind of fit. Because some people might be extreme micromanagers too.
Okay, well, thank you, Carrie. And you've revealed a whole category of good questions, which are called emotional.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's emotional questions during customer discovery are absolutely fair game. So now I guess we're going to be closing out, but we have to, so we have a lottery or a door prize.
Let me share my screen. This is it. Share. All right, can you guys see my random name picker up there?
Mm-hmm.
So
oh, look at that. That's cute.
Run this, and it goes through its thing and comes back, and it's going to give us our name. And the winner is Carrie.
Hey, Carrie.
Great.
So Carrie, I will be emailing you to get information about how we exchange this gift.
All right, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great Thursday.
Safe day.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Day. And we do have an event this evening as well. If anyone's interested in joining, we have happy hour at 6 p.m. where I will be interviewing Eric of Focus Lab about their 10-year anniversary. So Focus Lab's 10-year success story.
Great.
While we enjoy a cocktail later this afternoon, 6 o'clock.
Thanks,
Thanks.
everybody.
Thank you.